CEO's daughter collapses in the mall. A single dad rushes in, unaware of who she really is. It was supposed to be just a regular Saturday. Shannon Walker, COO of a major health tech company in Chicago, strolled through Lakeside Galleria with her 8-year-old daughter, Lily. It was the only free day they'd had together in weeks. Shannon, dressed sharply even on the weekend, carried the polished grace of a woman used to controlling rooms filled with board members, not playgrounds and mall crowds. But this day was for Lily. Just the two of them. The bright indoor lights shimmered across storefronts as they window shopped, their footsteps tapping softly against the marble floor. Children clutched ice cream cones. A carousel spun in the food court, playing music too sweet to ignore. And for one moment, Shannon let herself breathe, until everything shattered. "Mom!" Lily's voice came out thin and strained. Shannon turned and froze. Her daughter's small hands trembled. Her face had gone pale, lips turning blue. "Lily." Shannon dropped the shopping bags instantly and knelt down. "Sweetheart, where's your inhaler?" But her purse, it wasn't there. It wasn't anywhere. "Oh God. No, no, no. Help," she cried out, her voice cutting through the noisy crowd. Most people stopped and stared. One man ran. From across the floor, a security guard bolted toward them. Dark blue uniform, radio bouncing on his belt. His face was calm, purposeful. Without a word, he knelt beside Lily, checked her pulse, and reached into his side pack. "Inhaler," he said, almost himself. "I've got you." He gently eased the device into Lily's hand, showing her how to breathe. 1, 2, slow breaths. "There you go." Again. Her tiny chest started to rise with more ease. Color returned. The panic slowly faded from her eyes. Shannon clutched her daughter, still in disbelief. The security guard didn't wait for thanks. He simply asked, "Is she allergic to anything? Has she had attacks this severe before?" "Yes," Shannon managed, shaken. "But I've never forgotten her inhaler." "She's okay now," he said softly, "but she should still see a doctor today." Then he stood, adjusted his badge, and started to walk away. "Wait," Shannon said. "Your name?" "Logan. Logan Hale." He gave a polite nod and disappeared into the crowd like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. That single moment, a mother's helplessness, a child's collapse, and a stranger's steady hands, would change all their lives. Because Logan Hale wasn't just a security guard, and this wasn't just a random act of heroism. It was the beginning of a truth Shannon never expected to uncover, and a path that would reshape everything she thought she knew about success, motherhood, and the quiet sacrifices we never see. Logan Hale didn't always wear a Navy uniform and patrol shopping malls. 5 years ago, he was Dr. Logan Hale, one of the youngest pediatric emergency physicians at St. Mary's Children's Hospital. Gifted, driven, and known for his instinct in high-pressure situations, Logan had published in major medical journals before most of his peers even completed residencies. But all of that changed when his life did. It was a fall morning, crisp leaves swirling on the sidewalk, when his wife, Erin, packed her bags. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just looked at him with a quiet ache in her eyes and said, "You love your work more than you love us." The truth was complicated. Logan did love medicine, but not more than he loved his family. Still, late nights, back-to-back trauma shifts, missing birthdays and parent-teacher meetings. Eventually, it wore them both down. Their daughter, Ava, had been diagnosed with severe asthma at just 3 years old. Erin had tried to be understanding, but when Ava's episodes became more frequent and Logan was constantly on call, something broke. When Erin left, she didn't ask for custody. She left that to him. So, Logan made a choice. He walked away from a career people spend their lives chasing. He took a job that paid a fraction of what he was used to, but guaranteed predictable hours. Mall security wasn't glamorous, but it meant he could drop Ava off at school, help with homework, be there for every breath, every wheeze, every late-night scare. He swapped his white coat for a badge and a walkie-talkie. Not because he had to, but because he refused to let his daughter grow up without someone who put her first. And he carried an emergency inhaler everywhere he went, not just for Ava, but in case another child needed it too. Most people didn't look twice at him. They saw a guy checking food court loiterers and unlocking bathroom doors. They didn't see the man who used to intubate newborns with trembling mothers outside the door. They didn't see the years of training, the weight of sacrifice. And Logan never volunteered the information. He didn't need praise. He needed peace. For Ava, and for himself. That day in the mall, when he saved Lily Walker, wasn't the first time he'd stepped in quietly. But something about that moment stayed with him. The look in Shannon's eyes, genuine fear, deep love, and helplessness all tangled together. It reminded him of a younger version of himself, one who believed he could have it all. Later that night, after Ava fell asleep under her star-patterned blanket, Logan sat on the edge of her bed, brushing a curl from her forehead. He thought about Lily, about Shannon. He didn't even know their last names. But somehow, he felt like the story wasn't finished. And it wasn't. Because across town, in a high-rise office with floor-to-ceiling windows and glowing night lights from a city that never slowed down, Shannon Walker sat in front of her laptop, trying to refocus on a presentation due Monday. But her mind kept drifting back to that man's voice. His calm, his confidence, his instinct. You should still see a doctor today. She had. Lily was fine, thankfully. But the man's words lingered. Who was he? And why did a mall security guard handle a medical emergency better than half the specialists she paid six figures to consult? Something didn't add up. Shannon didn't know it yet. But Logan Hale, the man she dismissed as just a good Samaritan, was someone her world had crossed paths with before. And the truth would catch up with both of them sooner than either could imagine. The next weekend, Shannon found herself back at Lakeside Galleria, not out of habit, but because of Lily. Do you think we'll see the security guy again? Lily asked, skipping beside her. Shannon hesitated. She hadn't intended to come back so soon. There were proposals waiting, meetings stacked on Monday, a dinner party she should be prepping for. But something about Lily's question, something about Logan Hale stuck with her too. Maybe, Shannon replied. Would you like that? Lily nodded. He made me feel safe. They didn't spot him until after lunch. Shannon was sipping coffee from the cafe near the east entrance when Lily tugged her sleeve, pointing toward the atrium. There he was, walking slowly, chatting with another guard, radio crackling softly on his shoulder. Mr. Logan. Lily called. He turned, surprised, and then smiled. Shannon watched him approach, noticed how her daughter lit up, how the weight in her own chest lightened, just seeing him. You're back, Logan said, crouching slightly, so he was eye level with Lily. She made me a card, Shannon offered, pulling out a glitter-splashed envelope from her purse. Logan opened it carefully. Inside, a stick figure with a giant red inhaler and a cape hovered over a cartoon version of Lily. My super-breathing hero. He laughed, touched in a way that caught him off guard. That's me. Huh, he said gently. Yep, Lily said proudly. I told my class about you. Shannon chuckled, though her voice wavered slightly. We wanted to thank you. Properly. Logan shook his head. No need. Maybe not, Shannon replied. But we want anyway. Ice cream. He hesitated. Unless you're doing security things. Logan checked his watch. I get a break in 10. Meet you at Scoop and Swirl. 10 minutes later, they sat outside the ice cream shop, Lily between them, chattering about school, her dog Bubbles, and how she now carried 2 inhalers everywhere, just in case. Shannon glanced at Logan. You said you recognized the symptoms right away. Do you have a medical background? His spoon paused over a cup of Rocky Road. Yeah, used to be a pediatric ER doctor. Her eyebrows lifted just slightly. Really, long time ago, he said, brushing it off. Shannon didn't press, but something in her shifted. The way he'd responded during Lily's attack. The steady hands. The controlled breathing instructions. It all made sense now. Why'd you stop? He took a breath. Life happened. My daughter needed me full-time. Hospital shifts don't exactly allow for single parenthood. Shannon nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. No, they don't. For a moment, they sat in silence, united not by professions or status, but by something deeper. Parenthood, responsibility, love born of sacrifice. The weeks that followed became quietly ritualistic. Shannon and Lily visited the mall more often. Sometimes they ran into Logan, sometimes not. Sometimes Shannon claimed they were there for errands. Other times she didn't bother with an excuse. Lily and Logan grew closer. She called him Coach Logan after he showed her a trick to slow her breathing when panicked. He taught her how to sit and lean forward during attacks, how to keep calm. Shannon watched all of it from a short distance, equal parts grateful and unsure why it mattered so much. She told herself it was for Lily, that seeing someone who understood asthma outside of a hospital helped her daughter cope. But she knew better. She enjoyed their talks. His honesty. The fact that he didn't care about her title, her business cards, or her LinkedIn profile. Logan spoke to her like she was just a person, not a boardroom. She needed that more than she admitted. One Saturday, Lily had a minor episode. Nothing serious, just overexcitement after dashing between stores. Shannon reached for her inhaler, but Logan was already there, kneeling beside Lily with that same calm presence. Later, as they walked to the parking lot, Shannon asked, "Do you miss it?" He looked over. "Miss what?" "Medicine. Saving lives." Logan smiled faintly. "Every day. But I had to choose between being a good doctor and a good father." Shannon's reply came quietly. "That's not a choice anyone should have to make." He shrugged. "Most of us do. You just don't see it until you're in it." Shannon stopped walking. "You're right," she said. "You don't." That night, she lay awake longer than usual. The man she thought she'd thank once and never see again had become familiar, comforting, human in a way few people in her world were. And she had no idea that this connection, quiet and fragile, was about to be tested by a secret she'd forgotten, one that could break everything before it truly began. 2 weeks later, Shannon found herself standing in front of a podium beneath crystal chandeliers at the annual Gala for Children's Health Horizons, a philanthropic initiative tied to her company, Vitalis Tech. It was the kind of event she excelled at. Gown tailored, words memorized, applause expected. Her speech detailed the latest research her company had helped fund, cutting-edge cancer therapies, state-of-the-art devices, massive innovation. She looked poised, untouchable, the pinnacle of success. But none of that mattered 5 minutes later. Because in the back of the ballroom, just as the orchestra began tuning for the next segment, a sharp crash broke through the hum of conversation. A tray of champagne flutes had slipped from a server's hands. But it wasn't the sound that made Shannon freeze. It was the sight of a child, a girl, around Lily's age, at one of the children's tables, suddenly gasping for air. Her hands flew to her throat. Her tiny frame shook with shallow, terrified breaths. Shannon didn't hesitate. She rushed off the stage, heels clicking hard against marble. "She's having an asthma attack," she shouted, dropping to her knees beside the girl. And then, Logan was there, in a tuxedo that looked rented, but his posture was pure command. He brushed past a startled waiter, dropped beside the girl, his daughter, Ava, and pulled an inhaler from his jacket pocket in one fluid motion. "Easy, Ava. Look at me. Inhale. Now again. That's it. You're okay. You're okay." Shannon backed up, her heart still racing. She watched him soothe the panic out of his child with the same calm precision he had used on Lily weeks ago. Guests around them whispered. A few clapped politely as the girl calmed. The drama faded, and the evening slowly resumed. Shannon didn't move. She hadn't known Logan would be here. She certainly hadn't known he'd be recognized. The event coordinator appeared beside her, voice hushed. "Ms. Walker, I'm terribly sorry about the disruption. Dr. Logan Hale was one of our honorees tonight. His past research on affordable asthma treatments was, well, it was groundbreaking." Before he left medicine, Shannon blinked. Dr. Logan Hale. The name rang faintly familiar, like a dream half remembered. Then it hit her. 3 years ago, a proposal had landed on her desk. A pediatric asthma delivery system designed specifically for low-income families. Cheap to produce, simple to use, potentially life-changing. She had read the summary, skimmed the figures, and passed. Limited profitability. No scalable commercial model. That had been her note. She'd rejected it. She hadn't known the name then. Not really. Not like this. What had been his? His research. His career. His life's work. And she had crushed it with a single line in a corporate memo. She stood in silence as Logan helped Ava to her feet, his expression tight but composed. Then their eyes met across the ballroom, and everything shifted. Recognition, realization, and a weight that neither of them had wanted to carry. They didn't speak until nearly an hour later, after the gala wound down and most guests had left. Shannon found Logan in the courtyard behind the venue, where fairy lights draped from tree branches and the air smelled faintly of jasmine. He didn't look up as she approached. "I didn't know," she said softly. "But you remember now." "Yes." He finally turned. There was no anger in his eyes, just a tired kind of truth. "You're the Shannon Walker who wrote the rejection." "And you're Dr. Hale," she replied. "I didn't recognize it then. I was reviewing 20 proposals a week. That one," she paused. "It didn't stand out the way it should have." "Because it wasn't profitable," he said. Not bitter, just honest. She didn't deny it. "I was wrong." He shrugged. "You made a business call." She took a deep breath. "It wasn't just a business call. It was your work. It could have helped so many kids. It could have changed lives." "It did change lives," he said. "Mine. Ava's. And not for the better." The words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He nodded, but didn't offer forgiveness. That wasn't his job tonight. They stood in silence under the trees. Shannon had built a career on logic, data, and sharp instincts. But this was a moment numbers couldn't measure. He looked at her one last time. "Thank you for helping Ava. She's going to be fine. Not that you asked." And then he walked away. She didn't stop him, but she also knew this wasn't the end. Because regret has a way of waking people up, of pushing them to do what they should have done long ago. And Shannon Walker was wide awake now. It happened on a Thursday night. The sky over Chicago was awash of navy and steel, city lights flickering in rhythm with distant thunder. Shannon Walker had just closed her laptop, a glass of untouched wine on the table beside her. She'd spent the last 3 hours staring at documents, but none of the words stuck. Her thoughts kept circling back to Logan Hale and the research she'd buried. Lily was asleep upstairs, until she wasn't. It began as a soft cough. Then came the wheeze. Then the choking sob. Shannon's instincts kicked in. She bolted up the stairs, heart thudding. Lily sat upright in bed, her face pale, her breath shallow and ragged. "Inhaler," Shannon whispered, lunging for the nightstand. Lily tried, but the medicine wasn't working. Not fast enough. Not this time. Shannon's hands trembled as she called the after-hours pediatric hotline. Her breathing's worsening. "Yes, she's had 2 puffs already. No change. Should I come in?" "Get her to the ER immediately," the nurse replied. Shannon hung up, scooped Lily into her arms, and ran. As she sped through the rain-slicked streets, a memory flashed. Logan kneeling beside Ava at the gala. Calm, focused, effective. He hadn't hesitated. He hadn't panicked. He had saved her daughter once, and he might be the only one who could do it again. She didn't think. She didn't question. She turned left instead of right, away from the hospital, toward the Southside apartment complex she had secretly looked up after the gala. Just in case. Lily gasped in the back seat, curled under a blanket, and Shannon's voice cracked. "Hold on, baby. Hold on." She pulled into the lot, parked sideways, and ran, barefoot, soaked, desperate. She pressed Logan's buzzer repeatedly, each beep a prayer. He opened the door in a faded t-shirt and sweatpants, confused, until he saw Lily. "Inside. Now," he said, no questions. Shannon followed, cradling her daughter. Logan cleared the kitchen table and laid Lily down gently. He moved like muscle memory, already pulling a small, portable nebulizer from a cabinet, plugging it in, attaching the tubing. "She's at peak constriction," he murmured. "This'll help more than an inhaler." As the medication mist began to swirl through the mask, Lily's chest slowly eased. Her hands unclenched. Her face regained color. Shannon collapsed onto the couch, soaked, shaking. "You did the right thing," Logan said without looking up. "Coming here. I didn't know where else to go." "You didn't need anywhere else." They sat in silence for a long moment, the hum of the nebulizer the only sound. Shannon looked around the apartment. Simple, modest, but lived in. Medical textbooks lined a shelf next to finger-painted artwork. Ava's toys were tucked neatly in a corner. A framed photo of Logan in scrubs stood beside a picture of Ava in a tiara, both smiling. "You're a good father," she said quietly. Logan exhaled. "I try." "No," Shannon said. "I mean it. You walked away from everything because of her." He glanced at Lily, then down at his hands. "I walked away because I couldn't be both things. Not well. And Ava needed someone who wouldn't miss bedtime because a shift ran long." She nodded. "Still, it's more than most would have done." Shannon didn't realize how tired, she was until she stopped shaking. Lily, now asleep on the couch, breathed steadily. "I've been thinking about your research," Shannon said suddenly. Logan's face changed. Not angry, guarded. "That's old news." "It shouldn't be," she said. "It could change lives." "It still can." "It wasn't profitable." "I know," Shannon replied. "And I made that decision from a corner office. I never saw the people it would have helped. I didn't know your face. Or Ava's." He looked at her then, really looked. "You mean that?" She nodded. "I do. Why tell me now?" She gestured toward Lily. "Because tonight I wasn't a COO. I was just a mom, terrified I couldn't keep my child breathing. And you were the only person I trusted." Logan stood up, rubbing the back of his neck. "She's okay now, but keep the nebulizer until you can get one for home." "Thank you," Shannon whispered. He met her eyes. "You don't owe me anything." "I do," she said, "but not in the way you think." Just then, a small voice interrupted from the hallway. "Dad!" Ava, blinking sleepily, stood in a t-shirt with stars on it, rubbing her eyes. "Is everything okay?" Logan gave a reassuring smile. "All good, sweetheart. This is Ms. Walker and her daughter Lily. Lily had a tough night, but she's doing better now." Ava looked over at Lily, saw the nebulizer, and understood immediately. "She has asthma too." "Just like you," Shannon said. Ava tiptoed over, eyes wide with concern. "Is she going to be okay?" "Thanks to your dad." "Yes," Shannon replied. The words sank deep. "Thanks to your dad." In that moment, something fragile yet powerful passed between them. An unspoken bond, not of romance, but of recognition. Of two people who had been broken open by love for their children and were trying to piece things back together. And in that modest apartment, filled with the quiet hum of second chances, Shannon Walker made a silent vow. This wasn't going to be the end. It was only the beginning. The sun had barely risen when Shannon Walker stood in front of her office window, coffee growing cold in her hand. The Chicago skyline shimmered with a faint golden hue, but she barely noticed. Her mind replayed the events of the night before. Lily gasping for air, Logan's calm hands, Ava's sleepy concern. The memory pressed on her chest like a weight. She set the coffee down and picked up her phone. "Paul," she said to her head of R&D the moment he answered, groggy. "I need you in the office early. We're revisiting an asthma research proposal we shelved 3 years ago." Dr. Logan Hale was the original author. There was a pause. "Wasn't that the one?" "Yes," Shannon cut him off. "The one we rejected. I want a full review. Market conditions, social impact, updates in the field. Not just profitability, everything." She didn't wait for a response. She had work to do. What followed was a week of unrelenting determination. Shannon pulled Logan's original submission from archives. As she read it again, this time without the blinders of corporate metrics, she realized how revolutionary it truly was. A simplified, cost-efficient asthma delivery device that didn't require refrigeration, could be self-administered by children, and cost less than $5 to manufacture. It had been exactly the kind of solution low-income families needed, and she had let it die on her desk. Now, she was bringing it back to life. Shannon revised the proposal herself, collaborating with pediatric specialists, epidemiologists, and community health workers. She sourced data showing the economic burden of untreated asthma on low-income households. Missed school days, ER visits, lost wages. She even reached out to nonprofit clinics for testimonials. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't just building numbers into a pitch deck. She was righting a wrong. And yet, she hesitated before sending it to Logan. Would he even want to see it? We believe she meant it. She decided to find out. A package arrived at Logan's apartment on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Ava opened the door to find a courier holding a sleek black folder, hand-addressed. Inside was the revised proposal. His name was on the cover, Dr. Logan Hale, co-founder, Project Respira. There were pages of research, mock-ups of a redesigned device, partnerships with public health organizations, and a note in elegant handwriting on a yellow post-it. Some mistakes can be corrected. Meridian Board meeting, Thursday, 2 p.m. Your voice matters. SW. Logan sat at his kitchen table for over an hour, flipping through every page. He didn't want to be moved. He didn't want to feel the sting of hope. But it was good. Damn good. This wasn't lip service. Shannon had done her homework. She had built upon his vision without diluting it. And she'd extended a hand, not from a position of superiority, but of humility. Still, he wasn't sure. The last time he trusted someone with his work, it nearly destroyed him. "Are you going to go?" Ava asked gently when she saw the documents. Logan looked up. "It's just a proposal." "But it's your proposal," she said. Then, flipping through one of the diagrams, she added, "You used to smile when you talked about helping kids breathe better." I miss that smile. It wasn't manipulation, just the honesty of a child who had watched her father shrink himself to survive. And something in her words cracked the shell around him. Thursday, 1:58 p.m. The Vitalis Tech boardroom was filled with polished executives in tailored suits. Presentations were underway, charts projected on the screen, buzzwords flying, accessibility, impact, long-term positioning. Then the assistant opened the door. "Dr. Hale is here." Heads turned. Logan walked in, dressed in the only suit he still owned from his hospital days. He moved with quiet authority, like someone who had once delivered babies and faced cardiac codes without blinking. Shannon looked up, startled, then nodded with a flicker of a smile. They made room for him at the table. For the next hour, Logan spoke, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with conviction. He explained the mechanics of his device, the gaps it filled, the families it could serve. He told stories of patients he once treated in the ER, children who couldn't afford to refill prescriptions, who ended up back in the ICU because no one had created a solution for them. He ended with a question. "What's the value of a child who can breathe?" Silence followed. Then the chairman cleared his throat. "I move to approve funding for Project Respira." A unanimous vote. It was done. After the meeting, the boardroom emptied slowly. Coffee cups clinked. Laptops closed. Logan stood at the window, watching the city outside. Shannon approached, a file in her arms, her tone softer than he'd ever heard it. "Why did you come?" He didn't answer at first. Then, "Because Ava reminded me who I used to be. And because you gave me a reason to try again." Shannon nodded. "I forgot why I got into this work," she said. "Somewhere along the way, I started measuring impact and revenue, not lives. You helped me remember." They stood side by side. The skyline stretched before them. No promises, no apologies, just the shared knowledge that something had shifted for the better. And that redemption, when it's real, doesn't come from words. It comes from action. 6 months later, the ribbon was cut on a crisp autumn morning. Children clapped. Parents snapped photos on their phones. A brass band played softly in the background as a crowd gathered outside a small, unassuming brick building in Chicago's South Side. Above the doors, in clean blue lettering, read, "The Breathe Better Children's Clinic." No marble, no glass towers, just clean walls, wide hallways, and a purpose that couldn't be bought. Inside, the air smelled faintly of paint and fresh carpet. The lobby walls were decorated with colorful drawings, lungs shaped like butterflies, inhalers dressed like superheroes, and stick figures holding hands under a bright blue sky. Most were signed with just first names: Ava, Lily, Jamal, Sophia. Shannon stood beside Logan, both of them watching as families slowly streamed in. Some carried babies. Some had toddlers clinging to their legs. Some came in wheelchairs. All of them wore the same cautious look. Hope, with a touch of disbelief. Because this kind of clinic didn't usually exist in their neighborhoods. And it wouldn't have, if not for a mistake made right. The Breathe Better Clinic was more than a treatment center. It was a community hub, a place where asthma wasn't just managed but understood, where parents learned how to use nebulizers, kids were shown breathing exercises through cartoons, and no one was ever turned away because they couldn't pay. The core of the clinic's work, Logan's redesigned delivery system. Small, durable, inexpensive, empowering. It had already cut emergency room visits in the pilot area by 36%. Shannon had fought for this, not as a PR stunt, but as a mission. She'd rallied partners, secured grant funding, and leaned on every industry connection she had, not for headlines, but for results. And she had offered Logan a full-time medical director position, funded by her company, complete with benefits and research time. He declined. "Why?" she'd asked. He smiled. "Because some lessons shouldn't be forgotten. I'll work part-time here, and I'll keep my other job. Security shifts pay the bills. This place feeds the soul." It wasn't pride. It was principle. He wanted Ava to see that even when your path changes, your purpose doesn't have to. On clinic days, Logan wore his white coat again. But it was different now. He walked the halls slowly, kneeling beside young patients, letting them press stethoscopes to their own chests, teaching them what breath should sound like. He started each morning with one quiet ritual, tucking a small drawing into his coat pocket. It was from Ava and Lily, a picture of the two girls holding hands, standing on a hill, clouds shaped like lungs floating above them. And underneath, in blocky, joyful handwriting, "We can breathe now." Every Saturday, Shannon and Lily came to volunteer. Lily helped in the playroom, reading to younger kids, showing them her pocket inhaler. Shannon led parent support groups. Her CEO instincts softened into something more personal. She no longer checked her phone every 5 minutes. She didn't need to. This place, these people, reminded her that success wasn't only measured in IPOs or quarterly gains, but in moments, in breath, in life returned to children who once gasped through sleepless nights. On the clinic's fourth Saturday, Ava ran up to Logan in the hallway. "Lily's asking if we can paint a mural on the back wall," she said breathlessly, "with clouds and lungs and all the names of the kids who come here." Logan looked over her shoulder and saw Lily, holding a paintbrush like a sword, already grinning with anticipation. He nodded. "I think that's a great idea." The two girls ran off, laughter echoing through the halls. And for a moment, Logan looked at Shannon, not as the woman who once rejected his life's work, not as the powerful executive who later revived it, but as someone who stood beside him now, not above, not behind, equal in purpose, driven by something larger than ambition. She met his gaze and smiled. "You still think your uniform matters more than a lab coat?" "I think breathing's the only thing that really matters," he said. And Shannon, who once lived for control, could only agree. Because in that clinic, built from regret, redemption, and the fierce love of two parents, the future no longer gasped. It exhaled. It was late October, and the trees in Grant Park had begun to shed their copper and gold leaves. On the weekends, the air carried the scent of roasted peanuts from street vendors and the sound of children's laughter chasing ducks by the pond. On one such Saturday, Logan sat on a bench beneath a maple tree, sipping coffee from a paper cup. Across the lawn, Ava and Lily dashed through piles of leaves, their inhalers tucked safely in zippered pouches clipped to their jackets, just in case. But they hadn't needed them in weeks. Beside him, Shannon unfolded a blanket, settling in with 2 thermoses and a container of homemade granola bars. "You bake now," Logan teased. She smirked. "Let's just say I've become more domestic slightly. Next thing you know, you'll be knitting sweaters with asthma awareness slogans." She laughed, genuine and light. "Don't tempt me." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching the girls lie on their backs in the grass, pointing at cloud shapes and giggling. "They're good for each other," Logan said. Shannon nodded, like they understand something most kids don't. He glanced at her, "Like we do too." She didn't answer at first, just exhaled slowly, eyes on the horizon. "You ever regret it?" she asked finally. "Leaving medicine?" "Yeah." Logan considered the question. "I regret that it felt like a choice between being there for Ava or continuing my work. But I don't regret choosing her." Shannon leaned back on her elbows, letting the autumn sun warm her face. "I've been scaling back," she said softly, "delegating more. Turns out the company doesn't fall apart if I step away now and then." "Revolutionary." "I know," she smiled. There was a peace between them now, one born not of perfection or resolution, but of growth. The kind that comes from confronting your own failings, then choosing to move forward anyway. Shannon glanced over. "You ever think about the fact that we're kind of a weird little group now?" Logan raised an eyebrow. "Weird how? I mean, I'm a COO. You're a part-time doctor/security guy. Our daughters met by almost suffocating. And now we spend weekends feeding ducks and planning mural walls." He grinned. "Yeah, it's weird. But good weird," she said. He nodded. "The best kind." They weren't a traditional family. There were no declarations of love, no fairy tale endings. Just 2 parents who had made hard choices, paid hard prices, and somehow found in each other a kind of kinship neither expected. Ava and Lily ran back, cheeks flushed from the cold, holding a pile of leaves and 2 half-eaten cookies. "We made a leaf sandwich," Ava announced. "It's for science," Lily added. Logan chuckled and opened his arms. Well, come on, scientists. Let's see your masterpiece. The girls dove onto the blanket, giggling and full of life. And as Logan and Shannon leaned in, laughter wrapping around them like a blanket, there was no need to name what they were becoming. Because sometimes the best kind of family is the one forged through breath, earned, shared, and finally, free. Stories like these don't need explosions or cliffhangers to leave an impression. They linger in the quiet moments, in breath caught and then released, in two strangers who began as opposites and ended as something unspoken, yet deeply real. What makes this journey so powerful isn't just the medical crisis or the career sacrifice. It's the honesty of it all, the moments of failure, the moments of courage, and the choice again and again to show up, not just for your child, but for someone else's. Logan Hale walked away from a future others envied, not because he gave up, but because he understood what truly mattered. Shannon Walker discovered that being at the top of the ladder means nothing if you've lost the people who need you most at the bottom. And together, through pain, humility, and redemption, they rebuilt something that gave back far more than it ever took. Their daughters, Ava and Lily, didn't just become friends. They became a symbol of resilience, of what happens when adults learn from their mistakes, of what healing looks like when it's not rushed but earned. And the clinic they built, it stands as a promise that sometimes second chances come not when you're ready, but when someone believes in you anyway. So, to anyone watching who's ever doubted if one small act of kindness matters, or wondered if the past could be rewritten, let this story remind you. The breath you save may not only be someone else's, it might be your own.